Here are the 5 worst mistakes I see buyer's agents make, and I've seen them all firsthand. Most buyer's agents who are struggling think that the answer is more leads or more property knowledge. But the top 1% know the real problems are hiding in plain sight. It's in how they spend their time, how they think, and how they operate day to day. I'm Shane Hiscock, founder of Locate Buyers Agency. We operate in the top 1% of the industry, and I've spent 4 years training buyer's agents on how to level up their results. In this episode, I'm going to break down the 5 worst mistakes I see buyer's agents make, starting with the one that quietly kills productivity and building to the one that undermines absolutely everything else. Starting with number 5, the task switching trap. I see so many buyer's agents who think they're being highly productive because they are constantly busy. They respond to everything as it comes in. They jump from one thing to the next, and they operate mostly based on emotions and how they feel in the moment. They aren't actually being productive, they're burning time and mental energy. There's a concept that I learned from a book called Twice the Work in Half the Time. I've mentioned it before, and it shows just how inefficient task switching really is. Every time you switch between different types of tasks, your brain has to switch its neural pathways and effectively reset itself. This ultimately slows you down and reduces your efficiency. I actually get all of my buyer's agents to perform a specific task when they start with us to demonstrate exactly what I mean. I get them to take a piece of paper and create 2 columns. At the top of one column, they write alphabet, and at the top of the second column, they write number. I tell them to get their stopwatch ready. First, they write A in the alphabet column and the number 1 in the numerical column, then B, and then the number 2. They time how long it takes, and they go all the way down to J and all the way down to 10. Then they do this exercise again, but this time they just write all of the alphabet letters first, A through to J, then they switch and write all of the numbers, 1 through to 10. What they find every single time is that when they had to switch between letters and numbers, it took twice as long. Why? Because the brain was constantly switching between topics. How does this play out in the real world for a buyer's agent? Let's look at property sourcing as an example. You sit down, ready to jump into a heap of calls to sales agents, and you run your buyer brief past them. You have high hopes of getting through a lot of calls, but on call 3, you're given a property that sounds perfect. So you switch tasks. You go from calling to investigating. You jump onto RP data, you look at the maps, you look at the location, the block dimensions, the zoning. Before you know it, you've taken up 20 minutes and gone deep down the rabbit hole. Then you go back to calling and the exact same thing happens again. You end up calling about 10 agents in an hour and you have what you think are 2 good properties. You present them to the client and they don't like either of them. Now, contrast that with staying on task. You make your calls. When an agent gives you a property, you simply write down the details on your list. You leave it then, and you get straight back to calling. This way, you'll get through double, sometimes triple the volume of calls. You'll end up with a lot more options. Then you use the time at the end of your call session to process the properties that you found. You effectively are then keeping the same types of activities segmented. Try this on your next sourcing session. Block 1 hour just for calls. Note everything down and process it all at the end. You'll be shocked at how much more you get done. Now, once you've fixed your time at the task level, the next mistake is about how you manage your time at the weekly level. Mistake number 4 is failing to time block, or what I call letting the day run you. Without a plan, everything feels urgent. I see most buyer's agents not planning out their weeks and just going with the flow. Because they don't have a structure, they either get distracted or they think that every single thing that comes up is urgent and needs to be answered right now. In reality, it rarely does. The concept I use to fix this is from Covey's Big Rocks theory. It's about planning out your tasks for the week, prioritizing the most important ones, and getting those into your calendar with the time allotted to them first. These are your big rocks. They go in before everything else. Time blocking allows you to ensure the most important things actually get done. It takes you from a state where the day runs you to a state where you run the day. When things crop up, and they always will, you need to have a filter. You need to ask yourself 2 questions. Does this need to be done now? And does it need to be done by me? If the answer is no, you note it down and maybe you put that task in at the end of the day or you find another time for it. You keep the main thing the main thing. If you start blocking your most valuable tasks first, you'll find that important work gets done every single week, not just when there's time left over. But even if you fix your time management, there is a mistake in how you service your clients that can completely derail your progress. Mistake number 3 is over-servicing the wrong things. I see many buyer's agents spending hours and hours doing in-depth analysis and research about properties that their clients don't even care about. They think that all the data is what's important, that the client needs to know the walk score, the full history, and all of the suburb statistics before they even look at the place. More often than not, the client might not even like the property. You would have been far better off making more calls or getting creative to find more options rather than diving into the depths of every single property that you come across. I find that the underlying cause of the over-researching is often a lack of confidence in the buyer's agent's own skills and expertise. Over-researching feels like work. It feels like you're being diligent, but it's actually a way of hiding. Don't get me wrong, you do need to become an expert about all of those things, but your clients will thank you far more for more options first before they read War and Peace on properties they aren't interested in. Redirect that research time into more calls, more sourcing, and more options. The depth of research comes after the client shows genuine interest. Now, once you have these options and the client is interested, we hit mistake number 2, and this one can cost your clients tens of thousands of dollars. Mistake number 2 is not testing the sales agent during negotiations. Most buyer's agents respond entirely to the urgency of the sales agent. They try to get offers in quickly when in fact they are offering too blindly. They haven't gathered enough information, they haven't learned how to hold up the situation, and they haven't tested the reality of the agent's claims. They don't spend enough time gathering information about the specific sales process the agent's going to follow, and they don't know enough about the seller's actual situation. I think sometimes they're simply too scared to keep calling the sales agent and asking the hard questions. In my negotiations, they're never done just over a few phone calls. Typically, there are multiple phone calls and there are specific things that you can say and ask at different stages of a negotiation to gather the right data. You need to understand whether the urgency is real or manufactured, whether the price has room to move, and what the seller's true timeline is. I won't give away all of our secrets here, but know that this skill alone, the ability to test the agent and gather data before offering, can save your buyers tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single negotiation. I've saved the most important mistake for last because you can fix your time management, you can research habits, and you can improve your negotiation skills and still sabotage absolutely everything with this final mistake. Mistake number 1 is listening to the media and the negative market noise. I always say, thoughts become things. If you think things are going badly and you listen to the hype, that will affect your energy, your output, and ultimately your results. I see buyers agents listening to the news, watching social media about what's happening in the market, and they let it get into their head. It gets them anxious and worked up about things that actually haven't happened yet. If in your head you're running a story that it's hard, times are tough, then all of your activities are just going to be harder for you. What you'll end up doing is getting no results for your clients, and you'll end up just reinforcing the rubbish story that you're telling yourself. Remember, that's how your brain works. It's going to find evidence to support whatever your dominant thoughts are. So it's up to you to be the guardian of your mind. You have to maintain a positive outlook through all times. It's the biggest hack that I can suggest out of anything. I have 2 huge recommendations here. First, stop spreading the hype or the negative news. Watch what you say like a hawk. Second, come up with a few positive statements about the direction you're heading in and use them constantly. When people ask you, how's the market? And they will ask you that. It's the most common question I get. You never ever say, oh, it's bad, things are tough. If you do acknowledge the challenge, you immediately follow that statement with a pivot. You say, but we seem to be getting better and better, and my inquiry is actually increasing. You can have perfect systems, perfect skills, but if the story in your head is negative, your results will always suffer. Fix the mindset and everything else compounds. To recap, the 5 worst mistakes I see buyers agents make are: number 5, falling into the task switching trap and burning efficiency. Number 4, failing to time block and letting the day run you. Number 3, over-researching at the expense of finding more options. Number 2, negotiating blind without testing. And number 1, letting negative market noise dictate the story that you tell yourself. The truth is, the mistakes that kill buyers agents' businesses are rarely about property knowledge. They are about how you manage your mind, your time, and your energy. If you're tired of operating solo, second guessing your decisions, and hitting an income ceiling, you don't have to do this alone. Jump onto Elite Buyers Agent Instagram page and follow us, subscribe to the podcast, and follow along as we build the community, the systems, and the tools to help you scale from 1 deal a month to 4. Stay tuned for our next episode.